How did one of the biggest shows on television, packed with the most famous stars in the world, completely disappear and fail every time it tried to come back?
See that? McLean Stevenson goes up and picks it.
Now, at its peak, Battle of the Network Stars wasn't just popular, it was an event. Millions of viewers tuned in to watch the biggest names on TV compete in races, relays, and wild challenges, all representing the three networks that controlled entertainment. But just a few years later, the show collapsed, and every attempt to revive it failed. So what actually went wrong, and why could something that big never work again? Well, the answer reveals how quickly television changed and why some ideas only work once. Now imagine a time when the biggest stars on television weren't walking red carpets, they were sprinting across a field in a relay race. Actors who were known for dramatic roles suddenly found themselves in tug-of-war matches, obstacle courses, and swimming relays. Names that dominated primetime were now competing under the sun, surrounded by cheering crowds. It sounds a bit strange now, but at the time, well, it made perfect sense. Because in the late 1970s, television looked very different. There were only three major networks that mattered: ABC, NBC, and CBS. And for most households, those three channels were television. And that meant something important. The idea of network versus network wasn't just a gimmick, it felt real. And that's exactly what made the show work. When Battle of the Network Stars launched in 1976, the concept was simple. Take the biggest stars from each network and have them compete in athletic events. Each team represented their network, and each competition felt like a battle for dominance. But what made it special wasn't just the competition, it was the unpredictability.
Official. Deep pass out. Oh! Did you see those sure hands of that? I'll tell you, Debbie, you gotta give that lady credit.
For the first time, audiences saw celebrities completely out of their element. Actors known for playing heroes or comedians were suddenly struggling through obstacle courses or getting intensely competitive over relay races. It felt real, and that was quite rare. Now remember, this was long before reality TV became common. There were no polished competitions or carefully edited personalities. What viewers saw felt raw, unscripted, and sometimes even chaotic. And then there was the voice guiding it all. Howard Cosell didn't treat the show like a joke. He delivered commentary with the same seriousness he brought to major sporting events. That contrast between the absurdity of the events and the intensity of the commentary made everything feel bigger than it actually was. And then came the moments people never forgot. And one of the most famous involved a heated dispute between two team captains over a race result. What started as an argument turned into a challenge, a one-on-one sprint to settle it. And what followed wasn't scripted. It wasn't planned. And it became one of the most memorable scenes in television at the time.
But you would have finished second had Ben...
Like hell. Like hell. Like hell. Like hell. That's it.
That was the magic of the show. It wasn't just about celebrities competing, it was about real tension, real pride, and real reactions playing out in front of millions. And for a while, it worked perfectly. But what happens when the world that made a show possible starts to disappear? Now, the biggest problem wasn't the show itself. It was everything around it. When Battle of the Network Stars began, the television industry was simple. Three networks dominated everything. That made the competition feel meaningful, because those networks represented the entire entertainment world. But then, of course, everything changed. The 1980s introduced cable television, and suddenly viewers had more choices than ever before. Channels like HBO, MTV, and ESPN began pulling audiences in new directions. The idea of everyone watching the same thing at the same time started to break, and that created a serious problem. Because the show relied on one core idea, that three networks were battling for control of television. But once the audience spread out across dozens of channels, well, that idea didn't really make sense anymore. There was no single stage where everything happened. There were multiple stages, all competing at once. And without that shared focus, the stakes felt somehow smaller. At the same time, something else started to happen. Entertainment itself became faster, more intense, more constant. In the late 1970s, watching celebrities compete in physical challenges felt new. But as time went on, audiences became used to seeing more action, more sports, and more competition. And what once felt unique started to feel ordinary. But when a show built on novelty loses that novelty, well, it becomes vulnerable. But the outside world wasn't the only issue. The show had a problem from within. At first, the events felt fresh. Watching actors struggle through obstacle courses or compete in races was fun, because it was unexpected. But over time, those same events started to repeat. The format didn't really change much. The structure stayed pretty much the same, and the surprise factor slowly disappeared. What once felt spontaneous began to feel quite predictable. And in a time when television was evolving quickly, staying the same was definitely a risk. And as the years went on, the show started to just lose momentum. The excitement faded, the audience moved on, and by 1988, it was over. Just like that, one of the biggest television events of its time was gone. But in television, nothing stays gone forever. The real question was whether it could ever come back. Now, the first attempt to revive the show came years later, and it made a critical mistake. Instead of recreating the original rivalry between networks, the new version focused on a single network. That removed the central conflict that made the original work. And that's because the appeal was never just watching celebrities compete. It was watching them represent something bigger. And without that, the show just felt empty. And of course, the revival didn't last. But another attempt came in 2017. Now this time, the format was adjusted. Instead of networks, teams were divided by categories like genres of television. On paper, it solved the problem. But in reality, something still felt off. The energy just wasn't the same, the scale felt just smaller, and the sense of competition didn't carry the same weight. The original show felt like a major event, but the reboot, that felt like a summer special. And audiences noticed the difference straight away. Ratings started modestly and then dropped. And after one season, it was cancelled again. So why did every attempt fail? Well, that's because the original success wasn't just about the format. It was about the moment in time. The original show worked because television was unified, because the stars felt larger, and because the competition felt meaningful. Take away those conditions, and the entire concept changes. You can recreate the games, you can rebuild the set, but you can't recreate the environment that made it matter. That's what makes Battle of the Network Stars so unique. Its rise wasn't an accident, but its fall wasn't either. It was the result of a world that just moved on, and a format that couldn't keep up. But its impact is still very easy to see. Long before reality competitions became common, it showed audiences what unscripted television could look like. It gave viewers real moments between real people, and it turned simple games into something dramatic. And, for a brief time, it brought together the biggest stars in the country in a way that felt genuine. Now that kind of moment is rare, and once it's gone, it's almost impossible to recreate. Because some ideas don't fail because they were bad, they just fail because their time has passed. And Battle of the Network Stars may be one of the clearest examples of that. Some shows can evolve, some can reboot, and some just only work once.